Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Breer, and welcome to episode 67 of the 11FS FinTech Insider Breakfast Show. In this show, we bring you the best and the brightest from around the fintech and banking landscape every single weekday straight into your homes at 8:30 BST, here, live, and on LinkedIn. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by Dr. Sue Black Obe, who is a technology evangelist, computer scientist, social entrepreneur, and like so much more things. Like I have no idea how we're going to fit all of this into the next 30 minutes, quite frankly. But on this morning's show, what we're going to be doing is going to be talking about what Sue's been doing in her career in tech, in advocacy, in social inclusion. And by that point, it's probably going to be about 10 o'clock. So I'm going to try and talk as quickly as I can and as little as I can. But Sue, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi there, David. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
No problem at all. I mean, I'm not really sure where we begin, given all of the different things you've done over your career, and that's just so far. I know, based on the plans and based on things that you want to do, there's so much more to go as well. But could you maybe start by giving us a bit of an overview of your background and actually really what got you started out as in your career in technology?
Sure. Well, I left home and left school at 16 with not many qualifications. Then I started working. I got married at 20, had 3 kids by 23, and then unfortunately my marriage broke down and I ended up in the Women's Refuge and then getting a council flat in Brixton in South London. And kind of starting life again, really thinking, what do I want the future to be like for my children?
Yeah.
And I thought about going back to work, but realized that I wouldn't even be able to afford to pay for childcare. So then I thought, well, what about education? I could try and go back to school. So I went along to the local college. I'd always loved maths at school. That was my favorite subject. So I was looking for like a maths A level or something like that, and found a program called Polymaths, which was a fast track equivalent to 2 A levels in maths in 1 year, and lots of private study at home. So that kind of suited me completely with 3 kids on my own at home.
Goodness me, that must have been tough. Like I did A level maths in 1 year, and that was difficult. Like I remember first classroom sitting there they started talking about surds, and I think my brain exploded at that point. But got through it. So doing 2 A levels in maths in one year is pretty.
Yeah, it was crazy, but actually, because I'd been out of school for like 10 years, I hadn't wanted to leave school. I just kind of got like a dysfunctional family background. So I was actually desperate to learn stuff. So even though it was hard, it was just ideal for me, really, because it was a real challenge, something I could really get my teeth into, I guess. And so, yeah, so I did that, and then had to choose between, do I want to do maths or computer science at uni? And I just got very excited about technology and just thought, technology is the future. So that's back in 1988, 89. And I knew that there was loads of maths in computing anyway. So I just thought, why not try computer science? So did a computing degree at South Bank Uni in London. And then in the final year of my degree, my project supervisor said to me, what do you think about doing a PhD? And I said, I'd love to do a PhD. But what I didn't tell him was I didn't know what a PhD was. so I had to go and look it up after the meeting, but then realized, actually, I would like to do a PhD. Nice. So I'd love doing the research in my final year. And so then started a PhD. That took me 7 years. But in the middle of that, I got a full-time lectureship. So then became an academic, and then basically applied for promotion anytime I could. Ended up being head of department about 10 years ago at University of Westminster, and have done various other things, and now I'm professor of computer science at Durham University.
Fantastic. And I mean, doing something you love as well, right? I think there's a real and actually the dedication to sort of pursuing it as well is an amazing thing to do. I mean, and computing has changed so much during that period as well, right? In terms of, I remember I did a computing undergrad degree, and actually I remember talking about human computer interfaces, and all of these things that have now been evolved to very different subject matters that are taught. So in a subject matter that's evolving so much, then being passionate about it is almost a mandatory part, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some things always stay the same. I remember when I started my PhD, or when I was doing my degree, I think the exciting thing was object-oriented programming back then. And then like when I was doing my PhD into like extreme programming and pair programming and stuff like that. So, you know, those were, it was quite exciting actually. I remember when I first heard about pair programming, I got extremely excited. Whereas, you know, that kind of stuff seems reasonably like straightforward now, or normal. But yeah, absolutely. But I think the thing that's kind of grabbed me the most really is the way that technology and education have enabled me to live a much better life, really. And that's just not just for me, but for me and my family and my children. My 3 children then are grown up now, and I've got 4 children now, and in fact I've got 5 grandchildren now as well. So, you know, I can kind of see now that I'm in my 50s, I can see the effect of, you know, what I did in my 20s kind of carrying on through the generations, I guess, in terms of just, you know, building a career for myself, also earning enough money, because that's really, I mean, that was one of the main drivers for me, was to earn enough money to feed my kids, to clothe my kids, you know, to buy shoes when they needed them. Yeah, and that's kind of continued now across the decades. And, you know, now my kids have got good jobs and, you know, happy lives. And it could have all been so different, I think, if I'd taken different choices back then.
Yeah. And that, I mean, that's I mean, it's such a powerful motivator, isn't it? But I mean, back then you couldn't have thought for 1 second that push to go and maybe get back into education would have led to all of these things. But is it, to your point, is it, I mean, you said every time there was an opportunity for promotion, you stood up and you took it. Is this a series of, hey, this feels like an opportunity, I'm going to jump on this and make the most of this? Or I mean, I look back on my career and basically go, most of this was just luck, really, guys. Like, I'll be honest with you. It was like being in the right place at the right time and seeing an opportunity when other people necessarily didn't. But how do you sort of connect these things? Is it a mindset? Is it, I'm going to make the best of this situation? Is it the motivation, as you said, in terms of, you know, for your kids and your family? And what sort of drives you, I guess? I
think back in that time, it was, I need to earn enough money, because, you know, it's not fun not being able to pay your rent, and like the council wanting to take you to court for your rent. It's not fun not being able to buy your kids shoes, not having enough food to eat. So that was the real main driver at the beginning. And I think that's kind of what kickstarted my behaving in that way, I guess. But then that kind of grew into me realizing that if I did put myself forward, you know, and kind of take up opportunities that I saw coming towards me, things got better, you know. And I was I was very shy when I was younger, and so putting myself forward for things was not really the sort of thing that I did. But I think I found it easier because I felt like I was doing it for my children rather than for me. I somehow found it easier to put myself forward kind of again and again. Then I got used to doing that, and so then kind of carried on doing that even when we did have enough money. It just became my MO, I suppose.
I mean, it's interesting if you can get that external stimulus, isn't it? You know, you've got that. It's not I might be, you know, slightly more introverted, but I've got to push myself to do this because of this ultimate goal, right? And I mean, the other thing that sort of strikes me when I've kind of, I mean, I saw you do an interview with Sam Moore from 11FS and various other things that I've seen you talk. You haven't just made it for yourself. You've actually done a lot of things to try and give other people the types of opportunity, or make it a little bit easier for other people to sort of follow the path that you've kind of you've trod. So I mean, you're a big advocate for social inclusion more broadly, but particularly in the digital context. Can you talk a little bit more about that, and what does that really look like for you?
Yeah, sure. Well, so I think so gradually again, I kind of realized that, you know, technology and education have made massive changes for me, my family, and in my life, and taken me from a place, you know, where life was pretty difficult to one where things are really great. You know, I have an amazing life now, and one that I honestly would never, ever have dreamed of back in those days, like in the refuge or, you know, when I was doing my degree. I just wanted to get a degree and a job. So I just feel like understanding the kind of digital world also enables you to understand the real world, like what's going on in the world, because you can, you know, through the internet, through social media, you can see what's happening in the world. You can see all different people's opinions. You know, you can see news coming from different countries. So not only can you educate yourself in terms of just kind of like traditional education, but it also helps you to understand reality, I guess, really, but not just reality for you, but reality for lots of people around the world. And I think that's really helped me just in general to kind of I guess live a better life. And so I realized that that kind of technology education massively changed things for me. And, you know, as I've progressed in my career, you know, and things have got sorted out for me, I started thinking, but what about everyone else? You know, I can just see what massive opportunities I've got from the things that I did, from going to college, from going to uni. And so really wanted to try and help other people to feel the same way, to have access to the same information. And I guess probably about 9 or 10 years ago now, I started thinking that people need to be like digitally savvy to understand what's going on in the world. And also if they want to work in the future, it just has so many benefits in so many different ways. And I wanted to try and do something to upskill everyone and help them to realize that having digital skills can massively change their life and their life chances. And I didn't quite know what to do at the beginning and tried a few different things. I ended up running some workshops for 7-year-old kids in coding and app design about 8 years ago. And at that time, Michael Gove was the education secretary, and he was saying that computing is too difficult for anyone under 14. And I just thought that is absolute rubbish. There wasn't any coding in schools or anything at that point. I just thought that's rubbish, and I've got to try and prove him wrong. So we held these workshops with 7-year-old kids doing coding and app design. They went really well. And we got the parents to come in at the end of the day because I wanted the parents to see what the kids were doing to kind of get them on board too. And when I asked the parents to kind of like step in and have a go at what the kids have been doing, I noticed that in general, so not everyone, but in general, the dads would just kind of step in and have a go. And quite a lot of the mums just looked a bit like, oh, don't ask me to do that. And so that just kind of sparked a thought in my head, you know, why don't I try and concentrate on mums, on upskilling mums? And I guess that kind of resonated with me being a mum and you know, my history. And so I also found out that the key positive influencing factors on kids doing well at school at age 11 in literacy and numeracy were their mum's education and their home environment. So that kind of all that together, plus my own background, made me think, why don't I set up a program for mums? So that's what I did. I put together a program called it Tech Mums, and the program's teaching stuff like basic kind of internet skills, Google search, but also things like web design, app design, a bit of HTML, a bit of drag and drop web design, a bit of coding in Python. And the aim with that really was to build confidence in all of those ways. Started running it in 2013 in a school, Bishop Challoner School in Tower Hamlets, and just had great success straight away, really. One of my favourite mums was Amina, who I was running an app design workshop in the second week. So it started off as 10 hours, so 2 hours a week for 5 weeks. And so the second week was app design. And I was walking around the class doing app design workshop. And I said to Amina, how's Tech Mums going? You know, how are you finding it? And she said, oh, Tech Mums has changed my life. So I said, that's amazing. You know, how did that happen? And she said, well, I run a school uniform shop down the road in the East End. And for me to get my samples over to customers, I package them up and then my son takes them over to the customer site. She said, but last week you taught us how to add attachments to emails. And I realized that I can take a photo of the garment and I can email it over to my customers. Wow. And she said, and that's going to revolutionize my business. Yeah. So quite early on, I realized, you know, I didn't even realize that such small amounts of information can really change organizations, change people's lives.
Yeah, and as you say, the impact of that has not just on the mum, but actually on the kids, and then and to your example, the generations as well, right? That change has such a big impact because it just sets a different level of expectation, a different level of understanding, doesn't it? And actually, I mean, a lot of people think, I mean, if I sort of speak on behalf of my mum right now, she might watch at some point, but you never know. A lot of people think this stuff is sort of witchcraft. You know, I mean, it's like the internet and scary things, and just scared of breaking things. But actually, when you can give people that confidence, then that confidence transfers to their kid, especially in this time, right? With COVID, then you know, mums and dads have been stand-in teachers for the last 3 months as well, haven't they? So
yeah, absolutely.
And
yes, I mean, it's just so important.
It is. And I mean, in that program, like you say, went incredibly well. And actually, I think, you know, the sort of start with that has led to many other things that you've been doing as well, haven't it? So can you talk a little bit about the Tech Up Women program as well? Because I think sort of the Tech Mums has led to that program, hasn't it?
Yeah. So Tech Mums has been running since 2013 now, and that's techmums.co if anyone wants to have a look. And so more recently, so I started working at Durham as professor in like 18 months ago, and there was a call out for proposals from the Institute of Coding, which is like central government funded organisation, to produce courses which were kind of like post-degree level, which were kind of building tech skills, I guess. And I just thought, here's a great opportunity for me to put together a program which can, so kind of in my career, I've seen, because I've done loads of stuff around women in tech and empowering women with tech, I've met so many women who wanted to work in tech or wanted to be more technical, but just didn't quite know how to do that. And I've also talked to many organizations who've wanted to employ women, wanted to employ technical women, but say, you know, like we advertise, we say we want women to apply, a few women apply, and then like almost no one gets through, you know, the interview process. What can we do? And the thing is, there's not one answer to that really. But so I've talked to lots of companies who really want to employ women and also want to employ people from diverse backgrounds. Which of course is a great strength for any organisation or any team. And so I thought, well, why don't I put together a programme which takes women with degrees in any subject area through a programme so that they can work in technology in a tech career. And so we put together a proposal. So my colleague, Professor Krista at Durham University, we put together a programme which ended up partners. And we put together a program to take someone with a degree through a program in 6 months. So it's mainly online, but with 4 residential meetups in 6 months into the careers that the industry partners wanted to employ women into. So the top 4 careers that the industry partners came up with were software developer, agile project manager, business analyst, and data scientist. And so we created a program which took you from a degree into a pathway which was one of those specific job roles. And
that's nice. I mean, no, I think that's great. It's again, it's giving practical application for a education background, isn't it? Which is always the first thing that's missing, isn't it? But
yeah, absolutely. There's so many people out there with potential, just so many who want to work in tech or want to be more tech savvy. But of course, there's so many courses out there as well. And I think it's quite hard for people to know exactly what to do. And I think we need some clear pathways through for people who want to retrain into technology, who may be in a sort of reasonably similar role, but just don't quite know exactly how, or, you know, which sort of job role to go for, what sort of things to study. And not necessarily like go for a university degree, but something a bit shorter. And so that's done amazingly well. So if anyone wants to look at that, it's techupwomen.org. And we've taken 100 women, and we really focused on women from underserved backgrounds. So we had 54% women of colour, I think 40% parents, 46% women with disabilities, and 26% LGBT plus women, and going through the program, and we had 96% retention. So 96 women there retrained into one of those 4 job roles. And, you know, kind of like week on week, we're getting great stories of them getting jobs in various different places or getting promotions, starting a PhD. It's been life-changing for me, actually, just to kind of get to know those 100 women and see them go through this program, which, you know, we really focus, as well as tech skills, on building confidence as well. And so, you know, they're all kind of, you know, at the end of the program, you know, they're all mainly job ready. So the ones that haven't got jobs, there's still probably about 50 women there who could go into like a junior job role in one of those areas. So I'm so excited about how well that's gone.
Fantastic. And that's particularly focused on Midlands and north of England, if I understand that correctly. Why focus on that area as a region?
Because we couldn't do it across the whole country, and because I'm based at Durham University, so we decided to focus it on the Midlands and the north, basically, because that's the area that I'm working in.
Makes sense. I mean, as a Yorkshireman, that does does me proud, I have to say. But I've lost the Doncaster accent, but my roots is definitely still up there. But so I guess look, with everything that's happening with coronavirus, with everything that's happening with COVID, I mean, these skills are more and more and more important, aren't they, in terms of the world that we live in, and I guess the sort of wider economy. I mean, you must be sort of inundated with applications, I would have thought, like that program. In fact, that program and actually the Tech Mums piece, you know, the world has become, this is even more relevant than ever before, hasn't it? So, I mean, how are the programs going? Is it doing everything you want it to do?
Well, so I do with Tech Up Women is we really want to scale it because it's worked so well, and so we're currently looking for partners to work with, for industry partners to work with, so that we can at least run it again or scale it, which is, you know, would be my dream really. It's just been incredible to see 100 women go through that transformation and go into jobs in technology. So, you know, we just want to do that across the country is my kind of like dream now, I guess. So if any companies are interested, please get in touch with me. And in terms of Tech Mums, we're always looking for funding to run the programs. Tech Mums really focuses on working in areas of disadvantage. So the mums, so in fact, Tech Up Women or Tech Mums, the women don't have to pay for the program. The idea is that anyone can access it, because I just feel there's so much potential in so many people who don't always have the financial resources, you know, like me, again, back to my story, I was back then. So yeah, and Tech Mums, we're always looking for funding. We're always looking for partners to work with us to change women's lives.
It is amazing. I would have thought big tech companies would be lining up to help with this and to sponsor this, because I mean, at the end of the day, particularly where you're doing something that actually gives them people who are business ready, you know, the difficulty bridging that gap between a graduate and business ready is, you know, an undefined amount of time. So if you guys are getting people to be really ready for a job at that point, then it's a great on ramp to like you say, a technology career. So yeah, I mean, if you know, Microsoft or IBM or any of you guys are watching this, then definitely get in touch would be my advice. I mean, coronavirus more broadly then, I mean, we talked about social inclusion a little bit, and obviously the factor or the part that digital can sort of play in that. I mean, do you worry a little bit with this period that that divide will have got a little bit bigger? Because I mean, access, and I think we've seen this with education, with kids all being at home, access to digital isn't, you know, it's not as easy as just turning the tap on. Not everybody has good internet or a good computer or even any, you know, any level of access. So do you think social inclusion, the divide in social inclusion will have got bigger during this period?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been working with other universities in the Northeast to try and get some funding for, you know, there are quite a few deprived areas up in the Northeast, like Hartlepool, and in certain areas in Newcastle and Gateshead. And so we've been talking to organisations there about what the situation is. And, you know, it's very, very difficult in disadvantaged areas. So I've talked to one organisation which works on an estate in Newcastle, and they've got, I think, on the whole estate with probably thousands, hundreds or thousands of families, there's only 11 families who've got Wi-Fi at home. And so, you know, we kind of, I feel like now I live almost in a different world to the kind of world that I lived in when I was living in poverty on a council estate, but I still feel very connected to that life that I led for several years. And so it just pains me so much that there's kids, you know, so many hundreds of kids there, thousands of kids that won't be able to access the online schooling, that, you know, whose parents won't be able to access information online. And, you know, quite often there'll be one smartphone in a family, no Wi-Fi, and sort of a low amount of data on the phone because it costs so much money. And so, yeah, working with the other unis in the Northeast, we've been trying to get funding to do something about that, to bring in Wi-Fi, to bring in devices. But so far, we've not managed to secure any funding.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? As you say, the divides there. I mean, as technology cycles, as you know, are getting shorter and shorter. You know, the new iPhones, new technology. There must be a way of actually doing something to try and make sure that everybody has connectivity, that everybody has devices, because it is, you know, in a world of all jobs are online and all schooling is online and all communication, like the internet is a is a hygiene factor right now in
Yeah,
terms of.
it's like not being able to read,
Yeah.
previously. Yeah, it really, really is. And I think, it depresses me so much that everyone talks about digital skills. Well, kind of like in our world, everyone talks about digital skills. Everyone needs digital skills. But then when you find a specific area where you can really make a massive difference, it's very hard to find anyone actually putting money into it.
Yeah.
So again, calling out to companies who've got devices who can put Wi-Fi in across an estate. I'm sure that in the grand scheme of things, putting Wi-Fi across a housing estate serving hundreds or thousands of people, I'm sure doesn't cost that much money.
Yeah.
But it could revolutionize thousands of lives. I don't know why people aren't queuing up to do that as part of their CSR.
Agree. And actually, when you look at the organizations that would benefit from that, it would be a material impact for businesses as well, because connectivity for any device right now, most services require, people's washing machine might need access to the internet these days, so everything requires kind of internet access. But there was a good question for you over on LinkedIn. So Tatiana Marsh said, how could we encourage digital inclusion among the older age groups as well? So these guys have obviously been hit particularly hard during this pandemic, but and often a little bit more isolated, and rely a lot more on sort of community support as well. So it feels like inclusion of all categories really in need, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think in terms of trying to get people interested or exciting about sort of the internet and technology, the best thing to do is to find something that they're interested in already. So, for example, I could take my mum-in-law, for example. So she's not very kind of internet savvy. She has a go. She can do email and stuff, which is, she's really good at. But so when we went into lockdown, we decided to buy her an iPad so that we could kind of chat to her face to face on House Party and stuff. And it's taken quite a while to get her set up over the phone, because that's actually a lot more difficult than I would have expected. Not because of her, just because of the technology. But once we got her going with the iPad, so we chat to her on House Party now, which is really cool. And I talked her through ordering some clothes from Marks and Spencer's online, which she did. And then last week she said that she'd done it again on her own. So she'd ordered some stuff from M&S online on her own. And so that, that's been amazing. And I think if you can find something that someone wants to do, and then help them to do that, that gets them started. And then you can kind of add on other things after that.
Yeah, it's it used to be sort of go and surf the internet, but like I say, if you find a job that it really solves for people, then hopefully it takes off from there. I did say this half an hour is going to disappear, and it has. But I just want, before we go, I want to kind of touch a little bit on. So you've run a social media campaign around saving Bletchley Park. Can we talk a little bit about that? And actually, for anybody who doesn't know, can you tell us a little bit about the story behind Bletchley Park?
Yeah, sure. Well, Bletchley Park is where nearly 10,000 code breakers worked during the Second World War. Sorry, 10,000 people, including the code breakers, worked during the Second World War, kind of completely in secret to crack the codes, the German and Japanese codes. And basically, it was said that the work that was done there was said to have shortened World War II by 2 years. And at that time, 11 million people a year were dying. So potentially the work done at Bletchley Park saved 22 million lives.
Wow.
And so I first went there in 2003. I didn't know anything about the place. Found out that information, found out that more than 8,000 of those people were women. So I was completely blown away by that, because there was nothing that I could see anywhere online or actually at Bletchley Park which really told that story. Wanted to promote the women that worked at Bletchley Park, ran an oral history project to capture the memories of some of the women that worked there. And then during that, found out that actually Bletchley Park might have to close because they were sort of financially unstable. Their director said they were teetering on a financial knife edge. So I started a campaign to save it. I was head of department at the University of Westminster at the time. So I emailed all the heads and professors of computing in the country, asked them to get on board with a campaign to save Bletchley Park. We wrote a letter to the Times. I got in touch with Rory Keflin-Jones at the beginning. News and saying, I'm ashamed to be British. We've got to save our heritage. We must save Bletchley Park.
Yeah. And
so that kind of caused a spike in interest. But then that kind of it all went quiet, and I didn't know what else to do. This is back in 2008. And then the end of 2008, I started using Twitter, and in a nutshell, quite quickly realised it had massive potential for campaigning, because I could just type Bletchley Park into the search box in Twitter and connect with anyone around the world who was tweeting about Bletchley Park, and have a conversation with them, get them on board with the campaign, ask them to get their friends on board with the campaign. So we did various things over 3 years. It was in the end, I got Stephen Fry involved through Twitter. He was great. He tweeted a link to my Saving Bletchley Park blog, and instead of getting about 50 hits a day, I got 8,000 hits that day. Whoa. And became the most retweeted person in the world on that day in February 2009. Yeah, so it was amazing, kind of like early use of Twitter, and I was just trying to solve a problem, really. Yeah. But yeah, in the end, got thousands of people involved in the campaign, and managed to kind of change public and like funding bodies' perception of Bletchley Park from being a lost cause to being an ongoing concern, and one that needed funding. And so in 2011, Heritage Lottery Fund gave Bletchley Park 4.1 million, and kind of like that was, you know, we kind of ended the campaign there because we knew that it would be okay.
Fantastic. I mean, that's saving a place of real heritage in the UK history setup. So that's amazing. And it just goes to show the power of social media as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when people moan about social media, you know, of course, like anything, right? It's a platform. So, you know, it depends who's using it and what they're saying, but it can be used for good in so many different ways. And so, you know, I think people need to try and take a balanced view with social media.
Very much agree.
Oh, and just to say, I've written a book called Saving Bletchley Park about the campaign to save Bletchley Park, if anyone wants to know what we did and how we used social media to save one of the UK's kind of like premier heritage sites.
Fantastic. I'm afraid that's all we've got for today. I'm afraid we've run out of time, but I mean, so we'll have to get you back. And I mean, there's many more sort of threads to this story that we could do, but I think you're a genuine inspiration to so many people. So thank you so much for making time to join us and tell us a little bit about your journey as well. So where can people? I mean, I think I know the answer to this. It's going to be Twitter, isn't it? But where can people learn a little bit more about you?
Yeah, I'm at Dr. Black on Twitter. Or I'm at Durham University, so anyone can contact me there if they want to get in touch. And also Tech Mums and Tech Up Women. Fantastic. Happy to chat to anyone about any of those projects.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it is amazing. Can keep up the good work. I don't know where you find all the time to do all of these things, but anyway. All we have for you today, I'm afraid. We'll be back tomorrow, where I've got a good friend of mine, George Kelsey, who is the CTO for EMEA for On Systems. It's going to be a really, really interesting. So George has done an amazing array of things over time. Excuse me. And what we'll do, we'll sort of go through a bit of his background and the roles that he's had, and get up to speed with what he's doing today. So see you same time, same place tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. Goodbye.